Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Eric May, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host Social Suite, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Canterra Minerals Corp., a minerals exploration corporation with a focus on zinc and copper in central Newfoundland. Please note, you can submit questions in the question box to the left of the slides. You can also view the company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Chris Pennempede, Chief Executive Officer of Canterra Minerals, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol CTMCF and also on the TSXV under the symbol CTM. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks so much, Eric, and good afternoon, everyone. As Eric mentioned, Canterra Minerals is a Newfoundland-focused critical minerals explorer, and the primary critical mineral commodities we're after are zinc and copper, which have obvious implications with the electrification of the world and are now being recognized as critical across North America, particularly in Canada, to have a local source for these minerals. We acquired these assets 2 years ago and are now in a place where we're ready to drill each of our two main projects that contain high grades of both copper and zinc. Throughout this presentation, I will make forward-looking statements and disclosures, so I encourage all listeners to read through the forward-looking and cautionary statements on our website thoroughly. So in summary, Canterra Minerals is focused on critical minerals deposits in what I believe is a Tier 1 jurisdiction on the island of Newfoundland in Canada. We have a strategic land position in the heart of past critical minerals production in Newfoundland, and this is focused in the central part of the island, where the past producing Buckins mine and Teck's past producing Duck Pond mine were centered. And both these mines produced high grade zinc and copper for many years. And so our Lemarchant and Boomerang projects are proximal to these past producing operations. I believe that critical minerals are now seeing a lot of investment, both at a federal level and a provincial level, with the federal government providing exploration incentives and tax rebates for Canadians to support the development and exploration for zinc, copper, and other critical minerals. As well as the provincial government has an exploration assistance grant that allows exploration companies to access up to 10% back on their exploration expenditures on these projects. And of course, recent world crises have sort of highlighted the need for both Canada and the US to have their own source of these critical minerals and not rely so much on importing them from other places around the world. So I believe now the times you're seeing a lot of investors, particularly some of the bigger investors in the resource space, invest in critical minerals explorers and development companies. But really we're about discovery and deposit definition. We have two resource stage projects. Lemarchant is our flagship, and Boomerang's this a smaller deposit we have, combined containing over 1 billion pounds of zinc equivalent. All right, so jumping into the team and our board of directors. I'm a geologist by background and training, and I traded my rock hammer for a suit several years back when I became VP Corporate Development at Contact Gold, and had several business development roles before that, but spent my geological career in Canadian North and Alaska, where I was successful on the gold and copper front. Our chairman, Andrew Farncombe, is a banker by background and has founded several mineral exploration companies, particularly Contact Gold and Northern Superior Resources. And our someone that most people might be familiar with in Joss Surface. He is the Executive Vice President of Corporate Development at Integra Resources, coming off the back of the success of Integra Gold, which sold to Eldorado for $600 million in 2017. And Randy Turner, our director and founder of Canterra Minerals, needs no introduction, but incredibly successful, especially in the diamond space, but also in the gold space with selling SilverQuest Resources to New Gold in 2011. Our most recent addition to the board is Nick Coleman. He's a Newfoundlander, private banking background, and has extensive connections across Newfoundland, which is really critical as we move towards development of our assets in central Newfoundland. Jumping into the capital structure now, I like to say we have some of the best or well-known resource investors that, as we can count them for shareholders, with Eric Sprott owning 13% of the company, Michael Gentili, who's done really well in this most recent cycle, owning 12% of the company, and Altius Minerals, the prolific royalty company, owns their percentage, and then some of the high net worth individuals that follow Eric Sprott and Michael Gentili account for sort of the other. As insiders, we own 11% of the company. And so all told, we can speak towards 70% of the stock. So even though there's 100 million shares outstanding now, we can count for 70 million of that. Okay, zooming into the island of Newfoundland now. These are the major deposits that exist on the island. And certainly the focus in the last few years has been on the gold front, with discoveries from Marathon Gold in the central part of the island and their 5 million ounces. And obviously the market has been focused on newfound gold here in gold, in the gold color, which had the old Knob deposit, but have expanded well past that now. And I'm sure that will be a significant resource in the future. But before all that, before the gold, it was really about critical minerals and that zinc and particularly zinc and copper. And that was centered with the Lundberg deposit here in the central part of the island. So we'll zoom into that now. All right, zooming into the local scale, our projects are in blue. Marathon and their Valentine Lake project and 5 million ounces of gold is in pink or salmon color here. But really before this was known as a new gold camp in Canada, it was really the heart of critical minerals production in central Newfoundland. And that was anchored by the Buckins mine and the Lundberg deposit within the Buckins mine. This was a true tier 1 deposit, operated for 50 years, producing high-grade zinc and copper, around 20 million tons, averaging 22 or 21% zinc equivalent. And so it was really a proper tier 1 mine development that finally shut down in 1984 after around 50 years of production. And that was mostly produced by mined out by ASARCO. There exists a low-grade deposit there, a bulk tonnage low-grade deposit, but the high grade's been mined out. But what that did do in this part of central Newfoundland was bring in people and infrastructure. And I've worked all across Canada and the US, that I've never worked in some place that has all the boxes ticked. It has great road access, and that's been spurred on by forestry, so we can drive to all of our projects. There's power, obviously, to Buckins, and there's power now to Valentine Lake, and power to Tex Duck Pond Mine. So there's power within reach of all of our projects, and road access. But more than that, it's really about the people here in central Newfoundland. And because of the past mining history of the Buckins mine, there are lots of geologists and geotechnicians that live and work around here. And in general, the whole population wants to see another mine happen. The most recent mining operation was Tex Duck Pond Mine. So this again was high grade zinc and copper. It finally shut down in 2015. But it was definitely the most recent mine development here in central Newfoundland for critical minerals. So our projects are in blue, and what we acquired on the critical minerals front 2 years ago was the Lemarchant deposit, and the Long Lake deposit, and further to the southwest here, the Boomerang and Domino deposit. And so we'll talk about each of these. So focusing now, stripping away the gold and focusing on the critical minerals side. And so these deposits, whether it's Buckins or Tex Duck Pond, are all VMS deposits, polymetallic, so zinc, copper, lead, and gold. And our deposits are no exception to that. With the Lemarchant deposit, 3 million tons of zinc equivalent. Long Lake's really an exploration stage project that has a small resource around it, but is really should be seen as a good starting point in which to build tonnage through exploration. And then Boomerang is smaller, is the smallest of Lemarchant and Boomerang, with 2 million tons of zinc equivalent. And so ultimately, Tex Duck Pond Mine was the last mine that operated here, and the reason it was successful was 5 million tons of high-grade zinc equivalent, where Buckins was 20 million tons and operated at 22% zinc equivalent. Tex Duck Pond Mine, 5 million tons and operated at about 20% zinc equivalent. So very high grade, and that's a theme in this camp. At least high grade in terms of critical minerals. So going by the numbers with our deposits, you can see that Lemarchant has 3 million tons if you include the inferred. And what I really want to highlight is the zinc equivalent grade. And so that comes out at 15%. So it's pretty close to Tex Duck Pond, and that's definitely in today's metals environments, that would make a good mine. And so the problem with it is it's just a bit too small. And so if you're thinking about developing a mine in this camp, you kind of have to go after a duck pond like size. So that 5 million tons at around 13 to 15% zinc equivalent. So when we were doing the due diligence to acquire Lemarchant, we had to convince ourselves that there was enough exploration potential to get this to that magic 5 million ton starting point. Another thing I'll point out about Lemarchant is it's unusually high in gold for this camp, with 153,000 ounces of gold, and the gold average grade is pretty good at 1.2 grams per ton. So that works in its favor. We just have to make it bigger. All right, so how are we going to make it bigger? So this is the property position of Lemarchant. And you can see that the reason we were attracted to this project is that the drill intercepts are quite spectacular. 20 meters of 22% zinc equivalent is high grade, and that really is a theme across all of these deposits that we've acquired. So we just have to build a bit more tonnage. And so we've gone through all the historic data and developed 4 targets where we think we can expand the target. We know we can come in here and drill and incrementally add to the resource by drilling high-grade massive sulfide or high-grade zinc equivalent. And I believe that that would definitely improve our share price because we haven't yet drilled these assets since acquiring them. So the market has kind of not given credit to the fact that we have this Lemarchant deposit where we can drill high-grade zinc equivalent. So we think we can expand it off to the north, where we've done recent IP surveys and reinterpreted the geological model. And we think it's wide open to the north of the deposit, which is here in yellow. And then we also think here at target 2 that the deposit continues out to the west, and that we feel confident in because there's a bunch of historic drill holes that were drilling westward here and hitting higher and higher grades of zinc and copper out to the west, and then stopped. And so we believe we can come in here and rapidly infill and hit high-grade zinc equivalent here out to the west in the up-dip direction of the deposit. 3 is a bit more of an exploration target where we believe the massive sulfide body has been downdropped in a graben, and that's come out of the geological modeling and the IP survey we did, where we were able to fingerprint the deposit through the IP and found a similar response in the chargeability down here at 3. 4 is a more grassroots target where we have the key marker unit that you always hit before you get into massive sulfide, which is a mudstone in historic drill holes. So usually you hit that mudstone unit, drill 10 more meters or 20 meters tops, and you pierce out into the massive sulfide body. And that marker unit was hit by some holes in the 80s. And so we believe that if we just drill here in target 4 through that mudstone marker unit and into a chargeability anomaly that came out of the most recent IP survey, that we have a very good chance of hitting massive sulfide. And so in summary, we think there's great opportunity to not only hit massive sulfide here, get the market's attention, but also to work our ways towards that, building this from 3 million tons to 5 million tons. So just looking at it quickly in section, this is target number 2, where we could see here that the drill hole collars as squares here with zinc intercepts were being drilled westward with progressively higher and higher zinc intercepts. And then the drill holes just stopped. So we believe that there's room here to grow the deposit in the up-dip direction. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over the second largest deposit now in Boomerang off to the southwest here. So it's again half the size of Lemarchant, but we feel it's much higher grade than Lemarchant, but we feel that there's a lot of exploration potential. And so really, I think it's easiest to see in a lawn section. So looking at it in lawn section here, you can see the resource, the Boomerang resource itself here, and the Domino resource itself has been well defined, but open in both the northeast and southwest direction. But really, it's all about the Hurricane prospect, which was identified in the 90s, but wasn't drilled off and included in the resource. So we can come in here and easily drill high-grade zinc equivalent, and we think rapidly expand the resource here at Boomerang just by getting this infilled to the point where we can put a resource around Hurricane. Most people have this slide with the peer group, but as far as resource stage companies on the island, we are one of the lowest valuation, and certainly we're the only critical minerals resource stage project currently on the island. So quite simply, to summarize the opportunity here, I don't believe the market, since we acquired these assets 2 years ago, we were focused on the gold side of exploration in central Newfoundland. And while we continue to work away on the early stage gold assets, we believe there's plenty of opportunity to come in here, get the market's attention by drilling high-grade critical minerals or massive sulfide on these resource stage projects we have, and rapidly grow them to a point where they would be of interest to a developer coming in and looking at turning them into a mine as the next major mine in this historically prolific critical minerals production part of central Newfoundland. We've already started to leverage our critical minerals data set on both the island and Ontario by staking and acquiring new critical minerals ground. And so ultimately, we'll look to go drilling in the end of summer and early fall, probably in mid-September, starting on Lemarchant, focusing on those easy opportunities to hit massive sulfide and grow that deposit. And we'll look to do that certainly by the end of the year, but by late fall in earnest. And we'll look to drill 2,000 meters to start. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today, and I'll turn it over now to Q&A. The first question: are your two projects both greenfields? No, Lemarchant and Boomerang are resource stage projects. We have greenfields gold projects along the Valentine Lake Shear Zone, which I can highlight here in this slide. So in blue, the Valentine Lake Shear Zone next to Marathon in the pinky color here trends to the northeast. And so we've been working away on those gold assets for a couple of years now, yet to hit a Marathon-like discovery hole. And certainly it's going to take some more earlier stage greenfield type work to probably make that discovery. But in the interim, we knew that was going to be risky exploration. And so that is why we acquired these critical minerals deposits in Lemarchant and Long Lake, which are obviously less risk than pure greenfields exploration. Next question is, what attracted Eric Sprott to your projects? Eric Sprott came in originally on the gold front because we were exploring right next to Marathon's Valentine Lake project. And so he liked the opportunity of finding the next Marathon as we are along the same structure that hosts all of Marathon's 5 million ounces. But we're very early stage. It's worth noting he supported the company as pro rata in finances subsequent to that, with the idea that we'll be focusing on these critical minerals projects in the interim. Next question: can you discuss your capital position, and are you well funded for your 2023 drill programs? Our capital position is we have 100 million shares outstanding and about 1 million in cash today. So drill costs in Newfoundland are really cheap, although that's not enough margin probably to go in and drill a 2,000 meter program. We could do it, but I would suggest that wouldn't be wise to do that with hard dollars, as we call them here in Canada, where we could go out and raise flow-through dollars to support a drill program. And so we would probably look to raise a sort of $1 million of flow-through before embarking on that program, depending on market conditions. We have enough money to do it. We'll just see what the market's doing close to September and make that call at that point. Good question, though. Next question here: are the base metal deposits burdened by an NSR? Is access to the properties easy? Great question. The base metals projects are burdened by an NSR. That is now, by way of a few recent transactions, owed to Sandstorm Gold. It's 2% across all the projects, Boomerang, Lemarchant, and Long Lake. So definitely workable. But no buy down provisions on those. So it is just straight 2%. And yes, they're all road access. I was just there last week and was able to drive from Millertown, the base of our operations, right into Lemarchant, no problem. Drive right up to all the collars and casing that's left over from the original resource drilling. And then same thing at Long Lake and Boomerang. So the access is as good as you can get it. And the infrastructure in this region is phenomenal. They still log this region fairly heavily, so the roads are very well maintained, and we're always getting access into new areas as they open up cut blocks, which is good for making new discoveries sometimes. Okay, I think that pretty much does it, at least for what I'm seeing in our Q&A box. Always available to answer any questions outside of here, or you can reach out and ask for a one-on-one meeting. But I'll wrap it up there, and please reach out if you have any further questions with the contact details here. Thank you very much to OTC, and